The warm sun kisses the desert sands as the story of a young man, Joseph, begins. Picture this: a boy, the apple of his father's eye, draped in a robe of many colors, a symbol of his father Jacob's deep love for him. Joseph, the 11th son of Jacob, stands in the midst of his brothers, sharing a dream that would change the course of his life. Now, Joseph didn't just dream once, he dreamed twice, and both times his visions seemed to elevate him to a position of power. In one dream, his brothers' sheaves of grain bowed down to his. In another, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low to him. Imagine the frustration and envy brewing in his brothers' hearts. Why would their younger sibling have such grandiose ideas? Over time, this resentment grew into something darker, a plan to get rid of Joseph. So one fateful day, as Joseph approached his brothers while they grazed their sheep far from home, they saw their opportunity. Strip him of his beloved colorful robe and throw him into a cistern. That was their cruel plan. But wait, their jealousy pushed them further. Instead of leaving him in the pit, they sold him to a caravan of Ishmaelite merchants traveling to Egypt. For a mere 20 pieces of silver, Joseph was gone, stripped of his family, his home, and his dignity. Let's pause for a moment here. Can you imagine the heartbreak? Betrayed by those he trusted, sold off as if he were nothing more than merchandise. And yet, the Bible tells us, the Lord was with Joseph. Yes, even in the depths of despair, Joseph's faith in God remained strong. Now, let's follow Joseph to Egypt. He's bought by Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Joseph rises through the ranks quickly, earning Potiphar's trust. Why? Because everything Joseph touched prospered, for God was with him. Soon Potiphar makes him manager over his entire household. It seemed things were looking up for Joseph. But just as the sun breaks through the clouds, another storm looms. Potiphar's wife, infatuated with Joseph, tries to seduce him. Joseph, a man of integrity and faith, refuses her advances, stating, "How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And yet, his righteousness brings him trouble. Scorned, Potiphar's wife accuses him of misconduct, and Joseph is thrown into prison. Now picture Joseph sitting in a dark, cold prison cell. For most, this would feel like the end. But not for Joseph. Why? Remember, the Lord was with Joseph. In prison, Joseph's leadership and faith shine again. He is placed in charge of the other prisoners and becomes known for his ability to interpret dreams. 2 of Pharaoh's servants, the chief cupbearer and chief baker, are also imprisoned. One night, they both have troubling dreams. Joseph, filled with wisdom from God, interprets their dreams accurately. The cupbearer is restored to his position, while the baker meets a tragic end, just as Joseph predicted. Joseph asks the cupbearer to remember him when he returns to Pharaoh's service, but the cupbearer forgets about him. For 2 long years, Joseph remains in prison. 2 years! Can you imagine the patience, the faith, the enduring hope required to wait for deliverance? And then, one day, Joseph's life changes in an instant. Pharaoh himself has 2 perplexing dreams. In the first, 7 sleek cows are devoured by 7 gaunt cows. In the second, 7 healthy heads of grain are swallowed by 7 thin and scorched heads. None of Pharaoh's wise men or magicians can decipher the dreams. This is when the cupbearer suddenly remembers Joseph. In a whirlwind of events, Joseph is cleaned up, dressed, and brought before Pharaoh. Imagine the pressure of this moment. A foreign prisoner standing before the ruler of the most powerful nation of that time. But Joseph remains humble, saying, "I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." And so Joseph explains that Pharaoh's dreams are a warning from God. The 7 fat cows and healthy grains signify 7 years of abundance, while the scrawny cows and scorched grains predict 7 years of famine. But Joseph doesn't stop there. Armed with divine wisdom, He advises Pharaoh to store up surplus grain during the plentiful years to prepare for the famine. Pharaoh is so impressed, not just by Joseph's interpretation, but by his wisdom and faith, that he appoints Joseph as his second-in-command over all of Egypt, a position of immense power and responsibility. Joseph, the boy betrayed by his brothers and sold as a slave, now dons the attire of Egyptian royalty. He is given Pharaoh's signet ring, robes of fine linen, and a gold chain around his neck. For 7 years, Joseph oversees the collection and storage of grain. When the famine strikes, Egypt is ready, thanks to his preparation. But the famine isn't confined to Egypt. It extends to surrounding nations, including Canaan, where Joseph's family still resides. Hungry and desperate, Jacob sends his sons to Egypt to buy grain. Can you picture it? Years after selling him into slavery, Joseph's brothers stand before him, bowing low just as in his youthful dreams. They don't recognize him, but Joseph knows exactly who they are. However, Joseph doesn't reveal himself immediately. He tests their character, seeking to understand if they've changed. He accuses them of being spies and insists they return with their youngest brother, Benjamin. The brothers comply, bringing Benjamin on their next visit. Overwhelmed with emotion upon seeing his younger brother, Joseph weeps, though he still keeps his identity hidden. He devises one final test, hiding a silver cup in Benjamin's sack and accusing him of theft. When the brothers plead for Benjamin's release, it becomes evident how their hearts have transformed. Judah even offers himself as a slave in Benjamin's place, showcasing true repentance and love. Unable to contain his emotions any longer, Joseph reveals his identity. "I am Joseph! Is my father still living?" he exclaims. Shock, fear, and relief wash over his brothers as they process the revelation. But Joseph, filled with forgiveness and grace, reassures them. "Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." This moment is the climax of a story rich with emotion and redemption. Joseph invites his entire family, including his father Jacob, to move to Egypt, providing them with land and provisions. A family once fractured is now reunited, and God's promise to Abraham's descendants begins to unfold in ways they couldn't have imagined. The story of Joseph is a testament to faith, forgiveness, and God's divine providence. From the pit to Potiphar's house, from prison to Pharaoh's palace, Joseph's journey reminds us that even in the darkest times, God's plans are greater and his presence steadfast. And so, as the sun sets over the Egyptian horizon, we see Joseph standing tall, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a testimony to what faith in God can accomplish. Share this story, reflect on its lessons, and remember the unwavering power of God's hand in our lives.